Dizzy Doug the Dog's Daffy Day. In the bustling town of Bumblebrook, there lived a silly dog named Dizzy Doug. Dizzy Doug's days were filled with daft and dizzying deeds, delighting the dwellers with his drollery. Here's the tale of Dizzy Doug's Daffy Day, dotted with dastardly difficult tongue twisters to detail his deeds. One sunny summer start, Dizzy Doug decided to dash after daring ducks, diving deep into daffodil-dotted dells. Dizzy Doug dashes, ducks dive, daffodils dance, the townsfolk teased, as they watched his dizzy dance with the diving ducks. Next, Dizzy Doug discovered a dozen dapper dachshunds dining on dry, doughy dumplings. Dizzy, driven by desire, dove into the dachshunds' dinner. Dizzy Doug dines with dapper dachshunds, devouring doughy dumplings, chuckled the children, cheering for the chaotic canine caper. Then, Dizzy Doug, driven by a daring deed, darted onto a slippery, slimy slide, slithering swiftly, sliding sideways. "Silly, slippery slide seized Dizzy Doug's swift, slithering slide," shouted the startled spectators, stunned by the silly spectacle. As the sun started setting, Dizzy Doug spotted shiny, sparkling spheres suspended in space. Spurred by spontaneity, he started snapping at the shiny spheres, spinning and springing in space. Dizzy Doug snaps at shiny spheres, spinning, springing in spectacular space, sang the townsfolk, smiling at such a splendid sight. Finally, as the stars started showing, Dizzy Doug, dizzy from his day's doings, decided to doze in a deeply dug, cozy den. Dizzy Doug dozes deeply, dreaming of dashing, dining, diving, and delightful deeds, whispered the wind, wrapping the weary, worn-out wanderer in a warm, whispering lullaby. And so, Dizzy Doug's day of daft and dizzying deeds drew to a delightful close, with the townsfolk of Bumblebrook buzzing about the belly laughs and bountiful bliss brought by a dog's Daffy Day of delightful dithering. The next morn, with the sun barely beaming, Dizzy Doug, now duly rested, darted out, determined for new delightful, dizzying deeds. His first find, a flock of feathery flamingos, flaunting fancifully by the fountain. Dizzy Doug dashed, darted, and danced, driving the flamingos into a frenzied, fluttering flap. Dizzy Doug dashes, driving dainty flamingos into a fluttering frenzy, the townsfolk tittered, thoroughly tickled by the tumultuous tango. No sooner had the fluttering frenzy faded, Dizzy Doug detected a dastardly challenge. A hill haphazardly heaped with hundreds of haphazard higgledy-piggledy hats. With a huff and a puff, he hurtled into the hill, hurling hats high, hither and thither. Haphazardly, Dizzy Doug hurls hundreds of hats, creating a higgledy-piggledy heap, howled the onlookers, holding their sides in high hilarity. Midday morphed into a magnificent melee when Dizzy Doug discovered a cart, crammed with clattering cans of colorful, creamy custard. Compelled by curiosity, he catapulted into the cart, causing cans to crash, cascade, and cover him completely. "Clattering cans of colorful custard cover curious Dizzy Doug," the crowd cried out, captivated by the creamy, comical chaos. As twilight approached, an adventurous idea illuminated Dizzy Doug's imagination. A balloon, big and buoyant, beckoning him to bound into the blue. Bravely he bounded, ballooning boldly beyond Bumblebrook's borders. "Boldly, Dizzy Doug balloons beyond, bouncing about in the blue," bellowed the bemused bystanders, their eyes beaming at the breathtaking balloon. Finally, as the moon's mellow light meandered over the meadows, a muddy, mirthful Dizzy Doug moseyed back, his mind muddled with the day's merry memories. Marveling at the moon, he mumbled, "Mighty marvelous, my meandering, mirth-filled, mischievous maneuvers." Thus, with the moon mounting the midnight mantle, Dizzy Doug, drenched in dreams of his delightful, dizzying, and sometimes dastardly deeds, drifted into a deep, dreamless doze. The town of Bumblebrook, nestled in the nurturing night, napped noiselessly, nurturing tales of the nonsensical, yet notably noble, nocturnal narratives of their naughty, nifty, nimble, and notably nice Dizzy Doug. As dawn delicately danced across the dew-draped domain, Dizzy Doug, now nourished by naps and nestled in notions of new nonsense, nudged into the nascent day. His first feat, a whimsical whirl with wily whistling weasels, weaving wildly within the willowy woods. Dizzy Doug dabbles, dashing, darting, dancing with whimsical whistling weasels, whispered the wind, wrapping the woods in wondrous whispers. Noon neared, and Dizzy Doug, nose twitching, noticed a peculiar parade of prancing porcupines, each punctiliously pushing a plump, peachy pumpkin. Prompted by playfulness, he plunged into the procession, propelling pumpkins into a perplexing, prancing parade. Prancing porcupines and playful pup push pumpkins in a peculiar parade, pronounced the populace, peering at the perplexing procession with pleased, playful peals of laughter. As the sun slanted slightly southward, Dizzy Doug stumbled upon a quirky, quacking quartet of quails, quietly queuing for a quick quiche quest. Quixotically, he quelled his quirks and queued quietly, quickly quaffing a quiche with the quails. Quirky Dizzy Doug and quacking quails quaff quiches in a quiet quest, quipped the townsfolk, quietly chuckling at the quaint, quirky quest. Twilight trailed, tender and tranquil, as Dizzy Doug, tickled by today's trials and triumphs, trudged towards a towering, tangled treehouse. There, teetering on the tip-top, he took to a telescope, targeting the twinkling twilight. Tangled treehouse, telescope, and Dizzy Doug target the twilight, the townsfolk touted, their tones tinged with tender, touched tranquility. Finally, as the firmament flaunted its first flickering stars, Dizzy Doug, dizzied yet delighted by the day's diverse deeds, descended into dreamland. Dizzy Doug dreams of day's deeds, daring dashes, delightful dances, dizzying dives. The darkness delicately declared, draping the drowsy dog in dreams. Thus concluded another chapter in the ceaselessly curious, comically chaotic, and charmingly cheerful chronicles of Dizzy Doug. Bumblebrook brimmed with the belief that beneath the bumbles and bobbles, Dizzy Doug's deeds distilled a delightful draught of joy, jest, and jollity, jesting jovially in the jigsaw of life. With the wink of the waking world, Dizzy Doug, ever eager, embraced the embryonic embrace of a new escapade. His first frolic, a spirited sprint beside the babbling brook, where beavers built baffling bridges, bafflingly balanced between barely bending birches. Dizzy Doug darts by diligent beavers, building bridges between bending birches, bubbled the brook, broadcasting the bizarre but beautiful ballet. Mid-morning manifested a marvelous meeting with mischievous monkeys, merrily making magnificent mosaics with multicolored marbles. Mesmerized, Dizzy Doug mingled, managing to make a mosaic masterpiece, marvelously mirroring the morning. Mischievous monkeys and Dizzy Doug make magnificent marble mosaics, mused the townsfolk, marveling at the medley of mirthful mastery. As the sun soared, signaling the summit of the day, Dizzy Doug stumbled upon a curious competition. Snails, sleek and slow, staging a spirited sprint on a slender, slippery slope. Stirred by the spectacle, he spurred the snails, shouting support, speeding their sluggish sojourn. Sleek snails staged spirited sprints, spurred by shouting Dizzy Doug, the spectators said, spellbound by the slow, slippery spectacle. Twilight, tender and teasing, trailed the terrain, tempting Dizzy Doug toward a thrilling treasure hunt, hidden beneath the twilight-trimmed trees. Together with a team of tenacious terriers, they tackled the task, tracking down the treasure by twilight's touch. Tenacious terriers and Dizzy Doug tracked down twilight's trimmed treasure, touted the townsfolk, thrilled by the teamwork and tenacity. Finally, as night nestled its nuances near, Dizzy Doug, drenched in the day's diverse and dynamic deeds, dozed off under the dome of dazzling stars. Drifting into dreams, he delved into delightful, deep-seated desires of days drenched in daring and droll deeds. Dizzy Doug delves into dreams, drifting in a dome of dazzling stars, the night narrated, nurturing the noble napping night. Thus, the cycle of curious, comical, and ceaselessly captivating chronicles of Dizzy Doug danced on, each day a draft drawn deeply from the drafts of delight and discovery. Bumblebrook buzzed with a blend of bewilderment and bewitchment, beholding the boundless bravery and bumbling bliss that Dizzy Doug brought into being, a beacon of blissful bedlam beneath the broad, beckoning sky. As dawn draped its delicate daylight across the dew-draped domain once more, Dizzy Doug, ever ebullient, embarked on an expedition to explore the enchanting edges of Bumblebrook. His gaze got glued on a gaggle of geese, gracefully gliding in a geometric game. Dizzy Doug darted, dodged, and dived, delighting in the geese's geometric gliding. Dizzy Doug darts around the delightful dancing geese, diving in their geometric games, giggled the gentle breeze, gifting the giggles to the green grounds. Noon neared, and with it, a novel notion nestled in Dizzy Doug's nimble mind. He happened upon a hive of harmonious honeybees, humming heartily, huddling harmoniously. Dizzy, driven by a desire to delve into their dance, danced a dizzying dance, diving deep into the dance of the diligent, dainty drones. Dizzy Doug dives into the dance of diligent drones, dizzying, daring, and daintily dodging, hummed the harmonious hive, highlighting the hilarity and harmony of the happenstance. As the afternoon air aligned with the azure arc of the sky, Dizzy Doug discovered a peculiar parade of penguins, peculiarly positioned in a perfectly precise procession. Puzzled yet propelled by playfulness, he plunged into the parade, prompting a peculiarly pleasant penguin procession. Peculiar penguins and playful pup prompt a pleasantly precise parade, proclaimed the people, pleased and perplexed by the peculiar parade. Twilight trickled through the trees, tracing trails of tranquil twilight. This time, Dizzy Doug decided to delve deep into the domain of delightful dreams, dreaming of driving a delightful dragon-drawn carriage across the dynamic, dreamy dunes. Dizzy Doug dreams of driving dragon-drawn carriages, darting across dynamic, dreamy dunes, the twilight tenderly teased, tracing the tranquil transition into the terrain of dreams. Finally, as the firmament unfurled its fabric of flickering flames, Dizzy Doug, nestled near the nurturing night, navigated through the nuanced narratives of his noble nocturnal novelties. Nodding into the night, he nurtured the notion of new, noteworthy narratives nestled in the next day's nascent nudge. Noble, nocturnal narratives nurture Dizzy Doug's night, nodding near the nurturing nuances of night, the night's narrative noted, knitting a net of noble, nurturing nods. Thus, the cycle of Dizzy Doug's dynamic deeds danced into the depth of dreams, defining a delightful diary of day-to-day daring do. Bumblebrook, bathed in the brilliance of Dizzy Doug's blissful bedlam, basked in the belief that beneath the bountiful bumbles and bobbles bloomed a boundless, breathtaking beacon of bliss and belonging, binding the beats of Bumblebrook's heart beneath the broad beckoning beyond. As the first fingers of light filtered through the fabric of the fledgling day, Dizzy Doug, with a demeanor of deep determination, darted towards the dewy domain of his next daring deeds. Today, he stumbled upon a troop of turtles, tediously trekking towards a tantalizingly turquoise tide. With a twinkle in his eye, Dizzy Doug daintily danced around the deliberate, dawdling drift of the turtles, turning their tedious trek into a thrilling, thumping, toe-tapping travel. Dizzy Doug dances, driving dull dawdling into delightful dynamic dashes, the dawn declared, delighting in the delightful deviation. Mid-morning materialized, mingling mildness with the mystery. Dizzy Doug, drawn by the delicate drone of distant drums, discovered a duo of ducks drumming daringly on dense, dented drums. Driven by a desire to delve into this drumming delight, Dizzy Doug dashed into the duo, drumming dynamically, driving the ducks into a dizzying, dazzling drum dance. Dynamic Doug and drumming ducks drive a dazzling, dizzying dance, the ducks declared, drumming daringly into the day. As the afternoon ambience adorned the air, Dizzy Doug detected a curious congregation of caterpillars, cunningly crafting a colossal, colorful cocoon. Compelled by curiosity and creativity, he contributed to the crafting, creating a captivatingly colorful cocoon. Curious caterpillars and crafty canine create a captivating, colorful cocoon, cooed the community, captivated by the cooperative, creative crafting. Twilight tiptoed tenderly, transforming the terrain with a tapestry of twilight tints. This time, Dizzy Doug, tinged with a touch of twilight tranquility, took to the task of tailoring a tremendous towering tent of twinkling twilight textiles. Together with the town's tailors, They tailored a testament to Twilight's tranquility. Together, tailors and tireless terrier tailor a tremendous, towering Twilight tent, the townsfolk touted, touched by the twilight-tinted testament. Finally, as night nestled its nifty nuances near, Dizzy Doug, now nestled near the nuanced, nurturing night, navigated through the nuanced narratives of his noble, nocturnal novelties once more. Nestled under the nurturing night, he nurtured the notion of next day's nascent narratives. Nestled near the nurturing nuances of night, noble Dizzy Doug navigates nocturnal narratives, narrated the night, knitting a net of noble, nurturing nods anew. Thus, the cycle of Dizzy Doug's dynamic deeds danced into the dreams once more, defining a diary of day-to-day daring-do that dazzled and delighted. Bumblebrook, bathed in the brilliance of Dizzy Doug's blissful bedlam, basked in the beacon of belonging and boundless bliss, binding the heartbeats of Bumblebrook beneath the broad, beckoning beyond, believing in the beauty and boundlessness of being. As the cycle of days and deeds spiraled splendidly, seasons shifted subtly, shading the story of Dizzy Doug with a spectrum of spirited spectacles. Each adventure, each mischievous misadventure, melded into the mosaic of Bumblebrook, marking moments of mirth, marvels, and mutual merriment. Then came a day, distinct in its dawn, draped in a dazzling display of daylight that danced differently upon the dew. Dizzy Doug, at the doorstep of his daily dalliance, paused. There was a whisper in the wind, a hush in the hustle, a silent summons to a summit of stories. Gathering the town, Dizzy Doug stood at the heart of Bumblebrook, his eyes twinkling with tales, his fur fluttering with the finesse of his frolics. "Dear dwellers of delightful Bumblebrook," he barked, his voice buoyant with bonds built and beloved. Each dash, each dance, each dizzying day was a delight, draped in the dazzling tapestry of our togetherness. The townsfolk, touched by a torrent of tender thoughts, thronged closer. In the hush of heartfelt harmony, Dizzy Doug declared, "Our days of dares and dreams draw to a dusk, but despair not, for every dawn brings a debut of dreams and deeds. Let the legacy of our laughs, our lessons of love and light, lead us." And with that, Dizzy Doug took a tender turn into the twilight of his tales, leaving a legacy of laughter, a lineage of lightheartedness, and a lore of love that would linger in the legends of Bumblebrook. The beacon of Bumblebrook's blissful bedlam, the night of noble nocturnal narratives, nestled now in the narrative of the night sky, a constellation of community courage and cosmic capers. As night nestled its nuanced narratives near, the narrative of Dizzy Doug did not dim. It dawned anew in every dream, danced in every dewdrop, and dwelled in the depth of every heart. Bumblebrook, beneath the broad, beckoning beyond, believed in the beauty and boundlessness of being, a belief bolstered by the bedazzling beats of a dog's delightful doings. Thus, the story of Dizzy Doug, a delightful diary of day-to-day daring-do, drew to a dignified denouement, a testament to the timeless truth that tales of togetherness transcend the ticking of time, teaching us to treasure the thrills of the trail, the truth in the tangle, and the tender touch of Twilight's tale. And so, beneath the blanket of stars, Bumblebrook basked, forever bathed in the brilliance of Dizzy Doug's blissful bedlam, a beacon of boundless bliss, binding the heartbeats of Bumblebrook beneath the broad, beckoning beyond, believing, always believing, in the beauty and boundlessness of being. The end.